How y'all doing? It's your boy Car. Very beautiful. Well, as I stand outside my door, hold on 1 minute. Sorry about that. It just was looking so beautiful out there, don't you agree? Of course it's a temporary fix, because it was never fixed in the first place. This just bought them time to get back to the table and negotiate. Thanks, Mr. Sledge. But it shows you how crazy it looked outside. That's what I wanted to really focus on. Just chilling at work. Well, see, here's the thing. The government, they haven't really come to any type of resolution about anything. As you saw from the opening crawl, not the opening crawl, but the actual thumbnail, you can see that they didn't even get anything really resolved with this. But you can see it a lot better now. Look, see? The shutdown is over until the next shutdown. Which will be happening very soon. This is Star Wars, they be doing the crawl. Dun, 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 dun,
what his position is on it. How do they get to stay? Who gets to
Here's
stay?
the White House.
Again, depends on what we get in exchange. What do we get for border security? What do we get for walls?
This is Mike
Senator Schumer
Malavani.
this weekend said that he gave the president everything he wanted on the wall. I've challenged that. Senator Schumer says that he insists that he gave it. We'll have a discussion. Did he really offer $20 billion in appropriated funds? Or did he just offer $20 billion in authorized funds? Keep in mind, there's border security that was authorized in 2006 that Senator Schumer voted for, but that still hasn't been built yet because no one's actually appropriated the funds. So where are we on that?
So it sounds like 800,000 undocumented people who came to the United States as children through no fault of their own are still in limbo. Washington correspondent Ryan Nobles is on Capitol Hill today. You know, could there be another government shutdown over this?
Carol, there's a real possibility of that. I mean, when you look at the practical reality of where things are right now, yes, the government is back open, but in terms of where most senators sit as it relates to these big issues that they need to solve, they haven't really moved all that much. The big difference between what happened before the shutdown and what's happened after the shutdown is that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has promised Democrats that he will bring a DACA bill to the floor, that there'll be a fair amendment process, and that it will go through regular order. Other than that, Democrats and those dreamers have no assurances that this problem is going to get fixed. And even if a bill is able to pass the Senate, which is a possibility, there is bipartisan support in that direction, it then has to go to the House. And there are far more immigration hardliners in the House, and the Majority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana saying already this morning that they've made no concessions as it relates to DACA. And then, of course, has to get to the president's desk and be something that he can sign. So yeah, there's a 3-week timeline here, Carol, and there are no assurances that any of these big issues are going to be solved by that time.
Ryan Nobles reporting live from Capitol Hill. Many thanks. It's such a rip from the tabloids headline, the president and the porn star. But the story of Donald Trump's alleged affair with Stormy Daniels continues to gain traction. It's not so much about the spanking and the sharks at this point. You could read Stormy's scorching 2011 interview with In Touch magazine for that. It's about the alleged $130,000 payoff to Daniels to keep her silent ahead of the 2016 election. The nonprofit watchdog group Common Cause has filed complaints with the Department of Justice and the Federal Election Commission. It says the failure to report that kind of hush money could constitute a violation of campaign finance laws. Okay, we want to hear more, right? Joining me now is Stephen Paulding, the Senior Policy Counsel and Legal Director at Common Cause. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me, Carol. It's good to be with you.
Thanks for being here. So you say that $130,000 payoff violates campaign finance laws. Why?
Well, here's what we know. About 3 weeks before the election and 1 week after the Billy Bush Access Hollywood tape came out, President Trump's attorney, an attorney for the Trump Organization, Michael Cohen, the self-described fix-it guy, set up an LLC in Delaware to funnel $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, who is alleged to have had an affair with Donald Trump. And again, the timing is important because it's reasonable to ask, why was that $130,000 made right then in the run-up to the election? Was it hush money, and was it intended, was the purpose to influence the election? Because we know that she was in touch with Slate, with Good Morning America, with other media outlets. If it was intended to influence the outcome of the election, and if it was made in coordination with the Trump campaign or anybody on the Trump campaign, including the president, there's a question there that should be investigated, and that is it should have been reported to the FEC and in those campaign finance reports. But in addition to just the reporting violation, Americans have a right to know who's trying to influence their votes and their views. Where did that $130,000 come from? Was it from the president? Was it from the Trump Organization, in which case it would have been a prohibited corporate contribution, or was it from someone else? We need answers, which is why Common Cause filed this complaint with the FEC, and I know it's easy to get lost in the alphabet soup of Washington. The Federal Election Commission's job is to enforce our campaign finance laws in the civil context. So we'd like the FEC to look into this, to investigate. We think there's plenty of reason to believe that a violation may have occurred.
Okay, so a couple of things. So if it's personal money that came out of Trump's personal bank account, then there's no violation in your mind.
Well, there wouldn't be a violation that he triggered or exceeded a contribution limit because, unfortunately, for decades in this country, candidates are able to give an unlimited amount of their personal funds to a campaign. The question, though, is, was that reported? And again, that's so that voters can follow the money. It would be, voters might want to know that the president himself spent the $130,000. That's something that they could weigh when they go to the polls. So it's important. So that violation is just reporting.
Here's the thing, though. Stormy Daniels denies there was an affair, despite her interview with In Touch magazine, which happened a long time ago. Donald Trump's people also say there's nothing to see here. There was absolutely no affair. So if you can't prove there was an affair, then do you really have a case?
Well, so the question is, given the Wall Street Journal's reporting, is there enough there to investigate, to see if there's a reason to believe that a violation may have occurred? And again, I think if you look at the circumstances, $130,000 through an LLC to anonymously give that money to Stormy Daniels, we know that that LLC, that account in Delaware, that sham corporation was set up by Trump's self-described fix-it guy. There is a lot of smoke, and the purpose of the complaint is to trigger an investigation. The FEC can then look into this, see if, again, the question is, was that money given for the purpose of influencing the presidential election? In other words, to have her not speak to the press as hush money. And a lot of the reporting has confirmed that she was in touch with a number of media outlets, not just In Touch, but also Slate, ABC's Good Morning America, and those interviews didn't happen. So the question is, why not? Was that because the Trump campaign or the president himself was concerned about what she would say? If it was intended to influence the outcome of the election, and if it was made in consultation or coordination with the Trump campaign, there is a serious reporting violation and possibly a contribution violation, depending on where that money comes. But voters have a right to know who's trying to influence their views and to follow that money.
All right, I have to leave it there. Stephen Spalding, thanks so much for being with me.
Now, you see that? Now, that's crazy. This chick took $130K payoff. $130K? And this dude running for president of the United States? Porn stars have no real inclination about how the business works. You didn't even get $500,000? $130K to keep silent. You would have got $500K by any news outlet over the story. Easy. Look, who was your agent? She probably had a porn star as her agent. Yeah. Might get harder. Yeah, my cousin is Greg Stayhart, and we're here to represent Stormy Daniels. Terrible, terrible agency. Well, that's what you expect with this organization.
This to wrap up soon?
Well, I want it to wrap up in whatever way that is required for Robert Mueller to get to the truth. That is what Americans need. We have to step back for a minute and remember.
This is like the Kenneth Starr investigation. All this gonna be smoke and mirrors.
An election and trying to sort out who was involved in that. This is important not just for where we are today, but it's important for the future, and every single American should want that.
Jess O'Connell, Scott Jennings, thank you so much to both of you. I do appreciate it. And still ahead, the Trump administration is slapping tariffs on certain foreign products, and it's a direct shot at China. We will discuss next.
Look.
It's a direct shot at China. Yeah, right. Nobody's buying that.
The Go Fast continues at full speed, trying.
And obviously the tax reform, which is beneficial to those companies as well as beneficial to companies around the world.
Stocks are booming as a result, leading the IMF to raise its outlook for global growth to 3.9% for this year and next. But there is a but.
The long period of low interest rates has led to a build-up of
the IMF.
Potentially serious financial sector vulnerability.
One of the richest conglomerates in the world.
Increase in debt across many countries, and we need to remain watchful.
China's debt piles are on the watch list, and CEOs placed it second behind America on their list of most important foreign markets for growth. Germany, the UK and India followed, but Brexit is looming large. Just 34% of CEOs in Britain were confident about delivering revenue growth in 2018, down from 41% last year.
Still ahead on One American News, Facebook says they can't guarantee their site is good for democracy. More on the company's warning to users. Plus, good news for Netflix as the company adds millions of subscribers, more than expected. Details behind the jump after the break.
Request this free.
For NBC. NBC released its roster of on-air talent for its big game broadcast on Monday, and Costas' name isn't on it. Instead, Dan Patrick and Liam McHugh will handle hosting duties. This is despite earlier reports that Costas would be a part of NBC's Super Bowl coverage this year. The network says Costas won't be in Minneapolis for the game because Patrick and McHugh covered the NFL for the network all season. Costas apparently agrees. In a release, he said it, quote, wouldn't be right for me to parachute in and do the Super Bowl. It's worth noting, Costas made news in November when he publicly criticized pro football as a part of a panel at the University of Maryland.
The reality is that this game destroys people's brains. And not everyone, but a substantial number. It's not a small number, it's a considerable number. It destroys their brains.
Costas has hosted NFL coverage for NBC as far back as 1984, but stepped away this year as part of a semi-retirement. He also handed over primetime Olympic hosting duties to Mike Tirico, starting with this year's Winter Olympics, which will begin just a few days after the Super Bowl.
Cool memories. I know that if the test...
Red flags may have been there, but they were designed to be hidden. You aren't alone in this, and you need to help your daughter, as you have been, and I've heard that in your voice.
With us. Okay, let's just... Aside from thinking about how this move might affect foreign relations, just on its face, should there be a tariff on solar panels and washing machines made in China?
You know, Brianna, it's really a double-edged sword because it may be
that some of our manufacturers are being unfairly competed against by foreign manufacturers from China, from South Korea.
Now, this is what should have happened a long time ago.
It ends up being a tax on Americans because the products in question, in this case solar panels, washing machines, they get more expensive. So we've got to factor that in. But the real problem is this. If we go down this road with tariffs, these other countries may retaliate. They impose tariffs on our companies, on our products. We need to be able to sell around the world. 95% of the world's consumers live outside the United States. Then you get into one of these escalatory cycles where you've got a trade war. There's a better way to do this.
Do you really think that this could spur a trade war?
It could certainly, it'll almost certainly
That's
spur
a 30% hike up tax when you talk tariffs.
Is go to the World Trade Organization, which is
tariffs were created to make things fair.
Go to the World Trade Organization. If you've got a gripe, have it litigated.
In case of inflation.
Thing we didn't do, and unfortunately the president's pulled back from, is, he's right that sometimes there's unfair competition. Other countries get to have lower environmental standards, lower worker standards, lower standards for intellectual property.
This could be a slippery slope, is what he's trying to say.
That he pulled out of to level the playing field so our companies can compete fairly.
We would have pulled out of that anyways. I mean, Hillary Clinton, who had once called it the gold standard, said she wasn't going to. So it seemed clear there just wasn't an appetite, and that seems to be among American voters that they didn't want that, to your point there. We're getting a sense of how China feels about this. They put out a statement expressing strong dissatisfaction with the decision. Okay, so that's very diplomatic, but we know what they mean, right? The timing of this. Now let's put it into needing help from China when it comes to North Korea. I mean, North Korea is a massive global threat right now. What do you make of the timing of this?
The timing's not great. Look, on two fronts.
Also diplomatic. It's not great.
Look, we need China to exert real pressure on North Korea to get it to come to the table to negotiate something on the nuclear weapons and missiles. But we also don't need division with our closest partner and ally, South Korea, right now. South Korea has been responded to this overture, this diplomatic overture from North Korea on the Olympics. And that's really designed to divide us from South Korea. So adding this to the mix right now really doesn't help.
Do you think, as we just discussed, we weren't going to have TPP. The U.S. wasn't going to have TPP no matter who was in the White House.
I still think actually if Hillary Clinton had been elected,
she would have found some alternative or something. Okay, but there's such an animus in general from, it seems like, a majority of Americans when it comes to a trade agreement like that. Maybe she would have repackaged it in a different way. But do you think, as you see sort of a move in opposition towards that, create a really difficult situation when it affects the U.S. asking for help from international partners?
It does, but it's complicated. When you look at the polling, actually support for free trade and for these agreements has actually gone up as President Trump's moved away from them. I think we've done a really bad job explaining them. I think we've done a bad job explaining that actually these agreements, when they're done right, level the playing field for Americans. They make it fairer for us to be able to trade around the world. And there's some of these agreements that do need to be revised to make them more effective. But the alternative, getting into self-destructive trade wars, is not going to benefit anyone, least of all the American people.
Just real quick, how do you square President Trump saying, I have been soft on China because the only thing more important to me than trade is war? Okay, he said that to the New York Times late December. How do you square this with that?
Trying to square a lot of things coming from the president. Look, he says one thing one day, he tweets the opposite the next day. It's hard to keep up. Now he's going to Davos. And this is really oil meeting water, because the entire Davos crowd is, the things they care about are everything the president has shown disdain for. Climate change, free trade, protectionism, avoiding conflict, and avoiding populism.